Trump gets absolutely hammered in this explosive exchange as Piers Morgan and Roland Martin slam his latest remarks while Emily Austin attempts to push back. Let's watch the clip, then I'll give you my take. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
That just crosses every line of just basic human decency to me. Rob Reiner was murdered last night by his troubled, unhinged son. And to make political capital, and what angers me about it is there was all the outrage from Trump supporters, rightly, when the left mocked Charlie Kirk after he was murdered. And I thought we'd reached a kind of consensus that this, whatever side of the divide you're on, this is just unacceptable. That when people get murdered, you just show, it's just happened as we came on air. And I just thought we've got to start with this, because when you're the most powerful man in the world, listen, everyone knows I've known Trump a long time. But this is one of those times when many times he's been like this when big public figures have died. I remember it with John McCain. I remember it with Colin Powell. And each time I just wince at the lack of basic decency. What is your reaction to that?
Well, you saw that I came on here and I was brokenhearted when Charlie Kirk was killed. And I condemned the people celebrating it because, my God, if you're part of the peace movement, you're on the left, et cetera. We're supposed to be for nonviolence more than anybody else. So, and that was disappointing at that time. And then Donald Trump, among others, said it was the most outrageous thing they'd ever seen. For him to do it now to Rob Reiner, I mean, and for what? For what? I mean, did this guy advocate for some heinous thing? Not at all. And here's what I want people to understand about Rob Reiner. So he was obviously an enormous figure in Hollywood. Some of the movies that we all love, like Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, etc., right? But on top of that, here's something that no one could argue with. Rob Reiner was a true American patriot. He loved this country. Now, whether you agreed with him or disagreed with him on any issue, he's a guy who put his heart into this country and always tried to make it better. You could see patriots like that, whether they're on the right or the left, who deeply care about their fellow man. And Rob Reiner was definitely one of those people. He was the best of us. And to die in such a tragic way, and then to have the president of the United States rub it in and somehow make it about himself. Look, I could get angry at Donald Trump. We've all been angry at Donald Trump. But if you're on the right, more than anything else, you should just be deeply disappointed. Is this what you wanted? Is this the ha-ha, you're dead kind of mentality that you wanted? It sounded like after Charlie died that you really, really didn't want that you thought it was a terrible thing to do.
Well,
so
that's the
excuses.
Point. Yeah, look, that's the point, Gillian, that I would make, is it's going to be very interesting to me what people on the conservative right in America say by way of their reaction to what Donald Trump has said here. Because if there's any support for this from MAGA, from his supporters, his friends, from anyone, then it flies completely in the face of that whole debate after Charlie Kirk, when so many on the left behaved disgustingly. I remember calling it out at the time. And then here, the idea that he was murdered because of something to do with his views of Donald Trump, which is complete nonsense. It's. I'm not just disappointed. I'm angry with it.
I completely agree with you and Cenk here. I will say that when I woke up and learned about this, it was on Brandon Tatum's Instagram, and he actually showed the clip of you talking to Rob Reiner. So my hope is that any reasonable person on the right or the left finds political violence disgusting, any support of it disgusting, and I'm with both you and Cenk. There's zero pushback over here. I'm extremely disappointed in the way Trump
it's not even,
this.
There's not even a suggestion it's political violence in this case, right? We don't know why the son did this.
Well, either way, if Trump was trying to imply that it was because of Trump derangement syndrome, any violence of any kind,
I don't think he was.
Reprehensible. I'm not quite sure exactly what he was trying to imply, but I'm disappointed by his response. I have yet to see anybody on the right endorse that statement or celebrate the death of Rob Reiner. I certainly hope we don't, and I promise you that I would absolutely condemn anybody who does that.
Right. I mean,
I'm
let me
with you
bring
guys.
Wajahat in. I want to play a clip. This is another clip from the interview I did with him. I spoke to him for 45 minutes, literally in mid-September. It was a great interview. And I was very struck, actually, by the more mollifying tone that he took throughout this interview about Trump, who he has been very critical of in the past. There's no question. He's ranted away about Trump, like many in Hollywood have done. But in that interview, he struck a very different tone. And here's him talking about Trump and the fact the left kept calling him Hitler. Senator Ted Cruz has come out and said that people should stop using the Nazi rhetoric. And I feel very strongly about this. I think that you can absolutely go after Donald Trump in an aggressive way, but calling him Hitler or calling his supporters Nazis, I think crosses every acceptable line.
It doesn't get you where you want to be. I don't really know very many things that I agree with him on, but I also feel that if you go name calling like that it's not going to get you what you want. You have to rally people around the things that you agree with that are in disagreement with Donald Trump. And to me, the one area that, again, we both agree on is the freedom of speech and in the Constitution, First Amendment.
You know, there's an irony there with Jahat about the name calling, because I don't know what Donald Trump thinks he'll achieve with this rant about Rob Reiner, as his body is still warm from this brutal murder. But whatever he thinks it will achieve, it will only, I think, anger and disappoint a lot of Americans, if not all Americans. And I just don't understand why he would use his gigantic platform so soon after someone is murdered to do this.
The harsh truth is this is who Donald Trump is. This is who he has always been. He's been cruel. He's been vulgar. He's lacked empathy. I mean, you just saw this right now. I'm glad you brought it up because I read it right before I came on your show. You know, Rob Reiner and his wife, it seems that they were brutally and tragically murdered by their son, who apparently had mental health issues and drug problems. He was a beloved director. And you're seeing Donald Trump right now, who is the president of the United States, folks. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the representative of our country. And you just hope any president, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. What they say is this is a terrible tragedy, thoughts and prayers. Simple as that. But we've seen Donald Trump just even recently with Erica Kirk. I was on your show, and we all praised. It was a consensus amongst the panel that when she forgave the alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson, we all said that was very brave and a beautiful thing to do at the Arizona rally. What did Donald Trump do right after she said it? He goes, I don't forgive. I'm not as forgiving. Like, why would you say that? And then also after he survived the assassination attempt, if you remember at the RNC, Piers, you know, he had that patch on his ear. They gave him a script. He was supposed to be decent, kind, you know, meditative for the first 20 minutes. And then he mocked and ridiculed Paul Pelosi, who survived an assassination attempt by David DePape. So this is who he is. And Piers, if I may say, he's been like this for 10 years. I've been saying it. Chank's been saying it. Roland's been saying it. Longer. For everyone waking up today, where you been? This is who he is.
Well, where I've been, I've always called it out when he's done it after people die. I think there's a particularly distasteful aspect, and I'll bring Emily in here. You know, when people have just been murdered, whether it's Charlie Kirk, whether it's Rob Reiner, it doesn't matter to me what their politics are. When they've been brutally murdered, the only decent, civilized, human thing to do is to just be respectful or do nothing. You know, if your genuine feeling is what he's just ranted, well, don't say it.
Right. I feel like as the president of the United States, he does not, with all due respect, have any obligation to need to tweet about Rob Reiner. I feel like he has, you know, other things going on, and that's reasonable. If I were in Trump's inner circle, would I had told him to post this? Probably not. I'd suggest strongly for him to just not say anything at all. The first I'm ever hearing of Rob Reiner is that he has Trump derangement syndrome, and that still doesn't change any of my empathy towards him. I didn't know who he was. I'm hearing now he was talented. In fact, one of the first impressions I've had of him was Donald Trump's tweet. But I really think we're doing a disservice by drawing parallels from this to political violence, even bringing up Charlie Kirk's murder. I get why you brought it up, Piers, because you're saying, well, if you don't like how the left celebrated his death, don't celebrate this. but nobody's celebrating Rob Reiner's death. I hope, as Jillian said,
Well, it sounds like Donald.
It
sounds like Donald Trump is getting. Yeah, but look, it does sound like
I
he's
don't
getting.
think so.
He's getting pretty close to it. I mean, when he says that, he got killed reportedly due to the anger he caused others with his mind-crippling disease, Trump derangement syndrome. There is zero evidence for any of that. He got killed by his deeply disturbed son after what the TMZ and New York Post and others are reporting was a terrible family argument. The son, Nick, who's now 32, was a screenwriter who'd battled and talked openly about, made a film about drug addiction, homelessness, and so on. But apparently, used whatever kind of implement to slit the throats of his parents.
Yeah.
I
hear you. I'm not justifying it.
So
I don't
I'm not
think it was
saying that.
something he should have said
I don't think
at
there's
all.
any political motivation for this attack whatsoever. But Donald Trump has made it political by inferring very clearly that this happened because Rob Reiner attacked him, and that to me is where
I disagree. I disagree, Piers. I'll tell you what I think his intention was, and I will also preface by saying he did not get the message across. I feel like his intention was, hey, everybody, look, although this man hated me, and although he had Trump derangement syndrome, he ended it, putting us together with may they rest in peace, whatever. I feel like what his intention was even though I disagree with him, the guy died, and I'm sorry for him. He did that in possibly the worst way.
Stop it.
And I just don't feel like this is really shocking to anybody here. I feel like we've all been following Trump over the last 10 years. And as Wajahat said, that's his style. You like it or not, that's who he is. This tweet was wrong, but it's not, necessarily so shocking for all of us to see. And also, it shouldn't be blown out of proportion.
I actually did find it quite shocking. And I have known Trump a long time. I am a friend of Trump's, good, bad, and ugly. And I got to say, Roland, there's no defense for this.
There's no defense. I don't know what the hell I just heard. Let's be clear. He has no morals, no values, no decency, no ethics, no principles. This is who he is. This is not a shock at all. He's a narcissist. He is someone who makes everything about him. And so this is who this man is. This is who he was, not in the last 10 years, Piers, but going back to when he was descending down those escalators. Going before that, the whole thing with Obama and the birther. This is who this man is.
Well, he's always been a trash talker.
So I'm not
but Roland, hang on.
Not trash talker.
Hang on a second. Look, he's always been a trash talker, right? He's a New York real estate guy. He's a trash talker.
No.
And I would say,
trash talk.
I would say, I know, I'm going to come to that. In relation to general trash talk, my God, the left talk trash about him, right? As I said in that clip. So all the Hitler stuff and Nazi stuff, all that, it's a two-way street, the trash talking. This is a particular thing. Which angered me. It angered me when I saw his reaction to Colin Powell dying, to John McCain dying. I just think there's just got to be, on all sides, when public figures like this die, whether they're great politicians or they're great movie people, whatever it is, there just has to be a basic decency. If people get killed or murdered or whatever it is, or die after great lives and careers, just either be decent or don't say anything.
Here's the deal. This all sides is nonsense. First, listen, the regular average person who's out there on social media, that's one thing. But it's called being a statesman for a reason. I'm literally sitting here. I grabbed my book, Master of the Senate, of LBJ, and it was amazing. Cairo talks about how LBJ, how when he was president, how he spoke and moved differently publicly than he did when he was majority leader of the Senate, because he saw the presidency and the respect for the institution. This person has none. This is no shock. There's a reason I don't even call him president, because he does not rise to the occasion in that way. This is who he is. He will degrade people. He will say these things. I am not shocked by it because he is despicable in this way. Well, and there's no defense. There's no, I think he meant no.
Now, after watching that entire exchange, There is a lot to unpack, and honestly, the biggest takeaway for me is that trying to defend comments like these is a losing battle. Emily Austin attempted to give Trump the benefit of the doubt, but when the words themselves are this difficult to defend, eventually the argument starts falling apart. And then there's Piers Morgan. I've said it before, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And on this particular issue, I think Piers was right to call it out. Because if you repeatedly acknowledge that someone behaves this way when people die, while also calling that person a friend, at some point you have to ask yourself, where exactly do you draw the line? But beyond Piers, Roland Martin and Wajahat Ali made the larger point. This should not be shocking to anyone who has followed Donald Trump for years. Supporters may call it bluntness, trolling, or simply Trump being Trump. But critics see a repeated willingness to cross basic standards of political decency. And that is where the hypocrisy argument comes in. When ordinary people mock political figures after tragedy, there is outrage. So the question becomes, should the standard be any different when the person making the remarks happens to be the president? Because regardless of your political party, there should still be a basic standard of humanity when someone dies. And that is ultimately why this controversy matters. Trump has an enormous platform, and every statement he makes carries political weight. When even a tragedy becomes an opportunity to bring the conversation back to himself and his political enemies, critics are going to question what that says about his leadership. Whether you support Trump or strongly oppose him, that is the debate worth having.